At a young age, my father would bring me up here to bond with kin who toil on agriculture for a living. Hi, I'm Bin Cub and you are watching BC Earth Live TV channel. Degradation, regeneration, then birth. 100 years. Here is the story. Dear friends, good day. I am in a forest that is already 28 years old. There are so many plants around here in bloom. The view of the sky is astounding. I'm overwhelmed by the thought that it must have watched this place for millions of years. It is the cosmos. It is said to actually take part in what is going on down here. It works with ecosystems to keep life in this planet going. This jungle is actually Iyad's ecosystem. It is a community of plants, animals, microbes, and of course, count humans in it. They interconnect and interrelate with each other to form a web of life, a sustaining factor for everyone in this planet to survive, grow, and propagate. I have named this place Iraya Park. Iraya was actually what the old folks called this area, and the time when the place was still mostly jungle. Iraya is a word in local dialect which means upstreams. The parcel of land is an agricultural estate. It was once a homestead carved out of a dense jungle by my grandfather a long time ago. He cleared the area through the slash and burn or kaingin practice in the 1920s. The state has lasted for a century already. This is right now being developed into a hub of rural enterprise, diversified agriculture, and nature conservation advocacy. The future site includes small farms observing organic and regenerative cultural practices, a mini forest, a school for rural livelihood, facilities for dine-in as well as stay of visitors, agro-industrial processing outfits at a micro scale, and market of local produce. The forest is an array of varied flora and fauna, with certain species as source of food. What we have here is a rich ecosystem that metamorphosed from sparse vegetation dominated by coconut plants. The full-blown community of diverse flora and fauna that it has now arose not out of human design. No intervention or intent by man has had anything to do with it. The miracle of a forest springing on a land once devoted to monocropping was purely a work of nature. Let me tell you a story. In the first quarter of the past century, the area was still blanketed by a dense cover of endemic timber species and undergrowth. A bunch of wildlife species, deer, wildcat, wild boar, monkeys, big bat, owl, and hawk, among others, also inhabited it. But in the succeeding years, large-scale logging operations demolished the lush jungle. The logging activities raised swaths of thick vegetation, driving in their wake wildlife deeper into the mountain's interiors or out of existence. Timber pools and sawmills with heavy-duty machinery took over the quiet natural realm. A few years down the road, they would already destroy the pristine environment beyond recovery. Due to the unstopped cutting of trees over the years, the natural ecosystems around the place dwindled and hung on the edge, failing to further support the livelihoods of the local folks. In a distant past, my grandfather blazed a homestead astride a dirt road that the loggers built. He farmed the lot by the slash and burn method to carve a clearing through the forest. My father would tell me stories of how he lay on a fallen timber, half asleep through the evening to guard their corn patch from marauding monkeys. In one of his watch, he saw an elf piping smoke underneath a log. The woods, he told, were full of spirits. 5 years later, my grandfather with his family would leave the homestead to cultivate rice in the lowlands. Sweden agriculture was just how it was. Here today, gone tomorrow. The farm my grandfather abandoned soon grew back the trees and other vegetation that is lost and burned. Jungle growths covered the land again. Destruction and regeneration after were how things worked with the farmers of old. Things should have been fine, but years later, human incursion would cut down again the regrown forest. Landowners engaging in a new type of agriculture converted large tracts of land to coconut plantation. The planting of crops to export raw material for industries in foreign soil turned mountains, uplands, and hilltops into solely a carpet of coconuts. Monocrop cultivation massively demolished original ecosystems. Next to logging, it eroded biodiversity, upset the natural cycles that support life, drained water resources, and reduced soil fertility. But the plantation agriculture would almost be rendered note by highly catastrophic disaster. On November 8, 2013, Super Typhoon Yolanda, dubbed as the world's strongest cyclone on record, wreaked havoc on thousands of hectares of coconut plantation. The calamity razed over 90% of the plants, shutting down the production of copra for at least 10 years. Most lands in the area went idle after the devastation by Yolanda, simply because they were mostly devoted to the cultivation of a single crop, coconut. But in the hiatus, brush and jungle growth reclaimed them. Despite the economic slump, the ensuing situation seemed auspicious. It afforded the opportunity to end monopoly cropping and transition to diversified production. The coconut debacle offered no other choice but to drop the crop, even if temporarily. This meant doing away with the cultural practice that degraded the environment almost beyond recovery. Let's go back a little in time. In 1995, the state was not the forested one that it is now. It was covered by coconuts. The soil was degrading to acidic rust-colored clay. Cogon was creeping throughout to dominate the undergrowth. This was when I was enamored by the dream of seeing it turned into an agroforestry with diverse flora that include not only timber species and the rich understory, but food crops. I imagined the place being a vibrant ecosystem. In the meantime, I had the coconut trees cut for lumber. Besides providing materials for the construction of a training venue, the move benefited ecology. The palms were overpopulating. Their reduction prevented overcrowding, resulting in the suffocation of plants. It also relieved the soil of nutrient depletion, which the coconuts were worst at. Their removal, on the other hand, cleared space for other plants to grow. Fast forward 18 years since, most of the remaining palms, still substantial in number, would be filled by Super Typhoon Yolanda. In 1995, following the dream of building an agroforestry system, I planted more than 70 mahogany seedlings on the estate. This was in combination with designing a field venue for instruction and experimentation on sustainable agriculture. Woefully, financial hardships bogged down the initiative. I faced literally going hungry with still zero economic return for the time being. The long time to materialize gain forced me to leave for the city and find means of having income. Like my forebear, I also abandoned the land for greener pasture. I left the elements to take over. For more than 2.5 decades, my visits to the estate were rare. Crushed by a sense of failure, I gave up on the dream. I would go there just to have the overgrown shrubs and grasses cut by locals. Seeing the land for the sake of looking after it had become ritual and drab. But something short of miraculous happened. After a long time, I checked the estate once more. I was astonished to notice that a robust forest has grown. The mahogany trees have risen high into the sky. Stunningly, their number multiplied. Other flora simultaneously sprouted. They dramatically enlarged the array of species on site. Long-lost wildlife, like some species of birds, reappeared. They have a habitat once again to thrive. Many years ago, an environment so degraded by single crop cultivation seemed on its last straw. Now, a diversity of lush flora and fauna has burst with vitality on the same spot. Nature regenerated the land. Organisms that were no longer in sight turned up again. It was incredible. It was a miracle. Nowadays, people may care more for urban amenities and artificial objects of fancy than a natural benign environment. But I chose the road less traveled in these times of ours. I am lucky enough to still enjoy the experience of green surroundings in an age when the widespread wreckage of ecosystems has become the trend. No acquisition in the world can match the gift of the forest growing by its own. There may never be such kind of cosmic event in my lifetime. I am blessed that 28 years of forest growth dramatically unfolded on the land my grandfather once slashed and burned to pave the way for farming. How much could such a recovery cost in commercial terms today? It was priceless. A flash of eternity no money can buy. Such was the birth of Iraya Park.